Welcome back. St. Catharines Mayor Mat Siscoe is back to talk about what's happening around the city. Welcome, Mayor.
Good to be here.
Thanks for being with us. First order of business, we got to talk tariffs and what the city is doing to help the local economy. Yeah,
it's obviously a stressful time for a lot of us. I tell everybody I sort of have that same feeling in my stomach now as I did at the beginning of COVID. You know, it's kind of unexpected. The city's been taking some pretty firm steps, you know, with our procurement policy to make sure that anything we can source Canadian, source local, we're going to be doing that. You know, we have infrastructure projects that are coming up. We always want to make sure as much as possible. In the past, we've tried to make sure we're spending the dollars on local companies with local workers. Now we've made that our policy. In the past, we would have run into issues around trade agreements, but you know, there's someone in the U.S. who's currently tearing up trade agreements left, right, and center. Right. So we're going to make sure those dollars are spent in St. Catharines, in Niagara. You know, it's a push that we've also made to the provincial government. It was a commitment we got from the provincial government and all the parties really during the last campaign was, listen, those infrastructure dollars that you're spending on big projects like the Garden City Skyway replacement, those dollars need to be spent in St. Catharines. We know that there's going to be difficulties. I've had good conversations with some of our biggest manufacturers to make sure that, you know, they're committed to staying in the region, and they are. But there's still a lot of work to do. We're also advocating to the federal government right now. We have a business in St. Catharines, Neptunus Yachts, fantastic business, employs 50 people locally, really high-skilled labor, good-paying jobs. But we need the federal government to make some changes to the tax code because they're getting hit harder than a lot when it comes to the tariff issue. Okay,
and now let's talk about some of those projects that infrastructure projects that you mentioned, specifically water infrastructure. Yep. What's needed in the city, and are the tariffs, you know, going to impact those projects?
We got an update on Monday night from our staff, just talking about what our water strategy has to be. The simple reality, we're like a lot of municipalities. We've got an infrastructure backlog, but St. Catharines is an old city, and our infrastructure is in worse shape because, you know, the last 3 generations didn't put as much aside as they should have. What we've said is we've got to get into the ground and get that infrastructure moving. We've got to get those projects going. We have a 35-year plan to replace the backlog. Tariffs could damage that, though, and so we're making an effort to look for alternative suppliers, see if we can lower our costs by keeping the purchases that are needed, definitely the labor that's needed to replace the infrastructure, but the purchases of that infrastructure local. There's probably going to be a knock-on effect and additional cost, though, because if PVC piping that we need is generally sourced from an American spot, well, now there's costs associated with bringing it from a Canadian or, you know, another country. So we're examining that. It's going to have an impact on our infrastructure deficit.
Are there any estimates as of right now as to how much these projects will cost?
No, I mean, we know what our backlog is in present dollars based on the situation that has occurred up to this point. You know, we're looking at about $650 million, but that's spread out over 35 years, like I said, that backlog. But we don't know how the tariffs will impact. And, you know, there's a question of, you know, are we subject to the 10% tariff that they announced yesterday that one envoy said we were and then we weren't? It's just so uncertain right now. So, you know, we're going by our best estimates, but we're adapting to a constantly changing landscape.
All right, more fun topic.
Yes.
The city of St. Catharines is hosting a nature challenge that's going to begin in a couple of weeks. Tell me about that. The
City Nature Challenge, we've been involved with this in the past. I think it's 440 cities across the world get involved. I encourage folks to download iNaturalist. That's the name of the app, and then from the 25th to the 28th, they can record sounds in the community. They can take pictures of wildlife and animals that they see, anything that has to do with life in the community. But it's an awesome opportunity to catalog that, and then we're taking on different municipalities to see who can have the most residents uploading the most data that they can find, pictures and sounds.
Wow. Okay, tell me about your scarf. What do you got on there?
Yeah, so I come on and I'm always wearing, like, sometimes I'm wearing an Ice Dogs jersey or a Falcons golf shirt. The Roma Wolves are our League One team, men's and women's teams in League One soccer. They start up this weekend, April 12th at Seymour Hanna, and I'm a huge soccer fan. I'm a big Forge FC fan. Roma is in the league that's a step below. This is the semi-pro before you get to CPL. Fantastic league, fantastic talent. The coaches, the staff, they're awesome, and so I just told them I would support as much as I could. The men's team got promoted up to the first division this year, so League One soccer starting on Saturday, and super excited for them.
And you're going to be at some of those games.
I'm going to be at probably the women's game this Saturday, and then I'm trying to get to as many games as I can this year.
Awesome. Okay, thanks so much, Mayor Mat Siscoe from St. Catharines. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much. Go Wolves.